What is 3D printing? Well, simply put, 3D printing is manufacturing by addition. What do I mean by that? 3D printing is a method whereby material is added from nothing. To illustrate this, let's look at more traditional methods of creating objects. Normally, if you wanted to create an object from a material, you would take a block of material, also known as a blank, and remove those parts you do not want. You would either carve with a knife or blade or use a drill to create holes. You may use a machine to cut, or you may use a grinder or a file to shave away at rough edges. This is known as manufacturing by subtraction. You're subtracting material away until you have your desired result. 3D printing is the opposite. With 3D printing, you start with nothing and you add material layer by layer until you have a finished product. Let me demonstrate. You may have seen or used one of these at some point. It's your standard off-the-shelf hot glue gun. You can find these at hobby and arts and crafts stores. I bet you never thought of this as a handheld 3D printer. See, most consumer-grade 3D printers available work on the same principle as this glue gun. You start with a raw material. In this case, we have a glue stick. In a 3D printer, raw material is called a filament. We'll get to that in more detail soon. Once your raw material enters the machine, there's a heating element inside that melts the material. As you squeeze the trigger, the molten material gets pushed out of the little nozzle and cools down and then finally hardens. Typically, you would use this device to stick two objects together. But what would happen if I used this to draw a pattern onto a surface? Let's give it a try. I'm going to use this glue gun to create a small cube which has 6 sides. The first thing I'm going to need is to create the first side face down on the platform. I will draw a box. Then I'll fill it in to make it solid. You may be thinking, how are you going to create the sides and the top without it collapsing and making a mess? For this, I'll have to build up my cube in layers. So once this layer cools a bit and it hardens, we'll put down layer 2. I will draw the outside of the layer first, but this time I'm not going to fill it in completely. I want to make something that will not collapse, but I really don't want to waste all my glue either. So as a compromise, I'm just going to make a few lines. Now I have the second layer done. I'm going to repeat this for the third layer, this time filling in the layer the same way as before, but in the opposite direction. Now that I have all the inside of my layers complete, it's time to put the top side down. I will fill this in solid, just like the first layer. Once it cools, the process is complete. We just 3D printed by hand. Now, instead of doing it by hand, we could have a computer control the gun using robotic controls. And that is exactly what a 3D printer is.